All right. Well, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Getting a little late. But I'm trying to get all these videos out so that y'all can enjoy New Year's Day trying to practice all of this craziness that we're looking at. Because it does get a little crazy after a while. But I want y'all to have the opportunity, a little low, a little thin, to start working on some of this. So if you hit thin, Exhibit A, we're going to explain that. If you hit fat, we're going to explain that. If, especially with the driver, a little bit different of a beast, but if you take your driver and instead of hitting down, it kind of goes low and left, we're going to explain that. And we're going to explain to you how to start getting more consistent hits and how to practice all of this so that at the point that you've done a little work on this, you're going to feel very comfortable hitting compressed balls. There's two types. That was a compressed ball. This is an 8-iron. That hit at a 6-iron. So I've taken 2 club links out of that to get it down. But it was a little light, almost thin. That one, same hit, same area, pounded the net. So it's kind of like hitting that wall. Do you want to flash it and hit the wall, or do you want to hit the wall? Same thing goes here. So we're going to show you, so this might take 2 videos, not just one, to show you how you can start getting yourself lined up and how you're going to feel that hit. And then we're going to have to make sure you're not doing what I'm doing right now, is breaking one of the rules, because I didn't want to show you this quite yet. Get this up a little. Oh, and by the way, this is a 9-iron. So I'm hitting a 9-iron where the 6-iron is, because I told you, start off with a 9-iron. You'll enjoy this a little bit more. There, I raised it up for you a little bit. But here, we're going to have to make a couple changes after the swing and into the finish. And I've never talked about the finish before. Not really. I've kind of let you just, whatever your finish is, it is. But when you start compressing balls, it's going to matter. So you're going to have to make it. It's an easy change. So the first thing, no club. And let's just go over a couple quick things, what I want you to feel. I want you to learn how to turn here. And so sometimes, let me just grab a club for the weight, so I can have some weight in my hands. A lot of times when I'm talking to y'all, I've been getting ready for this. You'll see me come up and go, nope, that's not right. And you'll see me move my hips until I can get that turn into my hips to get this turn coming this way. So I'm trying to find, where do I want to come with the club coming down? And a lot of times I can feel here, oops, that's not going to get me to where I want to go. I already feel locked up. And so part of this is when you start feeling locked up, you're going to have to say oops and stop and realign yourself get those hips back to square and give yourself a place to get so that you don't do that. Remember, if you don't move your hips, I meant to say this on the last video. If you don't move your hips out of that way, it can get very dangerous. And I showed you that one ball embedded into the box over there. So you're gonna have to get the hip going. You're gonna have to get this to come up and stay straight and keep that ball going straight. So the first thing we'll cover, seeing as I'm hitting balls and I got a club in my hand, is your finish. And it's not difficult. See where my finish is right here? I'm coming through the ball and I'm breaking up here. And you'll see professional golfers do that all the time. Some will wrap, some Tommy Fleetwood's, looks like an umbrella. You're gonna have to learn that. That'll prevent a lot of your stuff going left. And it'll keep everything going straight. So it's not difficult to learn. You're coming down to here, and then you're letting the club release through the ball, bottoming out in front of the ball, and when you come to here, you're just turning your left wrist. You're kind of bowing it just a hair to come up, and you're stopping it so that you come up like this, where those three fingers. So I'll try to show you like this. And this is going to be bowed back. And it's kind of like this braking system. Because remember, you got this club freely moving with this weight coming through, and you got to come to a stop somehow. Now you can let it come to a stop and over, but you're going to have to do a finish. You've seen for this whole entire time, when I was just saying, hey guys, just turn everything, I really wasn't finishing anywhere in particular. But now that we're going to start looking at compressions, you're going to have to start adding that little bit of a finish so that we can stop and let the ball continue. It won't take long to practice that and to start finishing. Promise you. That's one of the easiest things there is. Most of y'all are going to find the turn, because you're going to turn too much this way and lock up that hip, and you're going to have to learn how to, nope, that's not it. I got to turn so I can get this space and utilize it, because I really have to come from the inside and come through. Some of you may need to start without trying to get your left shoulder over your right ankle at the first. More of a punch shot or a stinger. And let's go over that real quick. A punch shot, you can do these, just these little coming through about just over 3/4 and coming through and getting those hands through there. If they're thin on a punch shot, you don't want a thin shot. Thin shots mean you're too flat this way. You need to come up and down. Remember this bag. Remember this that you were looking at. And I said you're really going to need to come up and get through. That is what gets you down into the ground. So if you come flat, and think about it, 9-irons aren't hard. You start getting to the 5-iron, that's a whole lot of a difference. But once you start learning one club, it won't take you long to start learning other clubs. And so you'll be able to take 5-irons, 4-irons, 3-irons. See how I'm already getting my hip set up to go this way? And then I want my hands pretty well right, like if my toes are here, I want my hands pretty well on top of my toes. And I want this angle from here on. I might give myself a little room right now. And then remember, I told you when you bend over, you want 45, but you don't want to just kick the knees out. You can't bend down and expect to turn the way we need you to turn. You'll get a much more solid base for a golf swing no matter what you do. You want to go back to the just Randall, I just want to turn everything. You're going to get a better base to move on if you don't overly bend the knees. Now, if you want, I can explain or talk to you about the relationship of what your knees do in a golf swing. But you really don't want the left knee to cross this direction. This isn't some kind of baseball swing loading up this way and then trying to come through. But you do want this one to come over and kiss the other knee. So when you come through your golf swing, that one is what lets your foot rotate up, and that knee shouldn't go out. It shouldn't get sucked in on your toes because you're early extending. You're going to want it to come over here and kiss the knees together. And truthfully, depending on if you want to lead with your hands or if you want to lead with your hips, we'll talk about if we drew a line right here and called it the finish line. Sometimes you want your knee to come through the finish line before your hands, and other times you want your hands to go through the finish line before your knee. We'll get into all that. I'm thinking for my short irons, I'm going to want to be hip dominant and get my hip through and let my hands come after the hip. But for my long irons, at least to start, I might want my hands to come through and then the hip follows and kind of like closes the door behind me. And that's what's exciting when you really start looking at hitting compressed shots. It gives you the ability to decide, hey, do I want to lead with my hip or do I want to lead with my hands? And work on hand speed or body and hip and core. And there's a huge debate out there. Everybody's got an opinion. It'd kind of be like, what fishing lure are you going to use this weekend? Everybody's going to have their opinion. What beer are you drinking? Whatever the case may be. So you're going to start learning that. Even when you come down to, let me take off the 9 and let's grab the wedge. Even if you come down to a wedge, I've always said you can come through with your hands first and let the hip follow. And it's a great way to play like chip shots and things like that. You're not doing a whole lot of body movement. So some people like being able to do that. It's kind of like a little bunt in baseball. Other people are like, no. I want to bring the club back and use my body to go through. 2 ways to skin a cat. So let's look at, man, my nose. Sorry about that today. You can hear sniffles. Anyway, let's look at just to figure out what you want to do with this swing. So it's probably going to have to be 2 videos tonight. The first one, I want you to set up and I want you to kind of turn. See how my right cheek goes behind my left, and then when I come through this way, I kiss those knees. But the first step is to get the right cheek behind my left. So how can I feel that? Well, I always said find your swing plane, and then you can start moving your hips independently. Because if you recall one of my videos, I said don't swing your arms, but swing your arms using your body. And I said, you know, you're going to have to kind of sit here And you're gonna have to start turning, and the sooner you get the hips going separately from, and then if I stop moving everything, my arms fall back down. So I can use my hips to start creating movement. But when you feel this, especially if you put like a club, even if you just turn the club around, you can feel that whippiness. And you can hear it. So do I want to lead with my hands? Or do I want to lead with my hips? You're going to get a choice. And like I said, I might do on my short irons, my hip, and just to get started until I decide. On my long irons, or maybe even my woods, I only carry one, a 3-wood, if I take it, using my hands first. So how can we start making some decisions here? Well, if we're bending over at a 45-degree angle and barely flexing the knees down so we don't have locked up behind us knees, we can start looking for our swing plane like I used to show y'all. But now I want us to do something else instead. I want you to kind of keep this hand where it would be, but some distance between your hands. And I want you to start feeling like you're making that turn and pulling. 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 And then I want this one, get through that ball. Get through that ball. And so if you really wanted to think about it, I don't play tennis anymore. So I don't have a tennis racket. So this is going to have to work. So if you're doing a backhand, yeah, it's going to bend the pattern. That's okay. We'll do it this way. Head through the wind. Pulling. And then I want you to think pushing, and it's almost like you're coming over on a forehand, getting through that ball and throwing it down. And you're probably thinking already to yourself, oh my God, I haven't moved like that in years. Trust me, it's not so bad. You know, I could have used my little wall. Again, pulling versus pushing. But you see, no matter what, I'm getting on to my left ankle, almost falling over. And that's going to become a good thing. So now that you're recognizing how to make this turn and getting through that ball, let's look at just starting this whole thing off. 9-iron. The 9-iron is going to become your friend. And we're going to start off really simple. In fact, we're going to really make it simple. Here's where my 9-iron normally would be, in the middle of my stance. Well, right now, I'm going to move it up. So it's just going to be almost off my heel, my left heel. If I were having my feet like this, which some people do, and I've never talked about feet, it would be basically off that left heel. And why would I do that? Because I'm going to have you leaning into our, quote, wall, and I want you to just come up and hit through. That wasn't hard. We didn't do anything. I just said bring the club back and hit through. I didn't even say turn everything. I didn't say anything about where to move the club. I just said put the ball in front of you, kind of lean forward, make a turn, and hit through. So there's a thin one. We don't want that. But you're going to start feeling why did that hit thin. Like that. Because my shoulders. So when we're talking about working on things, we're doing it because we're preparing for the next thing we're going to have to do. So this one is hitting through the ball by coming through the ball. See what I'm saying? So you're gonna have to lift the right shoulder and then let the shoulder come down and release. And you can see that ball's got some snap on it. And we're not even doing anything fancy yet. All I'm saying is just come here, bump and run. Man, there's a, you know, you want to get lower. Move the ball more like off the right heel and bump and run. You're going to learn other things. So this wasn't too difficult. I didn't have you moving your back, but let me talk about your back. When we're talking about starting to do these bigger, full-blown on golf swings and everything like that, I told you, you want to make sure that both your muscles feel the same pressure all the time and not just one, like the right one or just the left one, because that means you're doing something wrong. And we don't want to create back problems. We want to solve problems so we don't get back problems, so that we can have fun playing golf. So now you've kind of seen, okay, if I'm leaning forward and put the ball a little bit forward and put my weight, mainly, you know, you can even kind of do this. I see what he's saying. We're hitting down on the ball. Now, if you're starting to hit left, I want you to start working right now on stopping here or stopping on bigger swings where you start getting some kind of finish. So even if a big swing you want to finish, you're stopping yourself from over rotating, because this swinging around is going to start creating snap hooks, and we don't want snap hooks. So you might as well start learning now to stop yourself from a future problem and learning how to just stop. And you'll be more enjoyable learning. So let's go a little higher. Still got a lot of weight on the lead leg, my left leg, and I can come up, and I want to make sure I do that turn where I'm turning through here, but I want to get my hands forward. My hands moved too fast that time. Remember I said you can put your hands through the hitting zone, start with your hands or start with your hips. Well, if we got this hip where we're kind of just using it for support, we're going to have to be a little handsy for just right now. So I want you to start learning how to get your hands through the ball without hitting thin. So you're going to start learning this shoulder has to stay down, this shoulder has to come up, so that when I come down, and we've all heard it, I have an angle of attack, so I can start attacking the ball and hitting through the ball. This whole process is we've got to first hit the ball and then hit the turf. And so to start learning this, I need y'all to start learning that. And that's not hard. We're just putting our weight forward. We're kind of using our toe just to support ourselves. We're not locking our knee up. We're not even hardly using hips. And we're getting through the ball. And we're just making some simple shots. And then we're going to go bigger. We're going to start getting a little bit where we are going to turn. So you see how I got my foot already angled this way? Because I know I'm got my weight back here and I've just got my toes out. So I'm going to have to give it some room to start hitting through. And we're going to make a bigger turn. Just want that feeling that we're coming down into the back of the ball. But when you do this, you shouldn't be hitting fat at this point. You should be hitting the back of the ball. Start working on getting your hands to come through in the release to be more natural. And if you start thumping the ground, that's okay. That's an easy, we'll take care of that. But right now, I just want you to learn to keep this bent so that when you're coming up, you're throwing through the back of the ball because your angle of attack. And if we had the impact bag, we can probably do this. Have the impact bag, get further back off the mat. We're just simply coming from up here down into here. Up here, down into there. Done with you. So, same thing here. You open the door this way, shut the door that way. So your door's angled and you're coming through and you're really trying to hit almost off the mat. So let's go bigger. Still crazy footwork. Still haven't changed anything. Slight kick left, and we'll deal with left. But what did you notice I did not do? Remember that finish? I said, look, I want y'all to start coming into a finish. Notice how it starts taking care of the left? So let's try that again. Bigger swing. See how I stop my finish? I don't go left anymore. You're going to find there's some positives when you start doing this. So even if you don't want to learn the full compression, but you want to, like I said, learn how to hit through the ball, even learning something like your finish to prevent those stupid lefts, especially when you've got a wedge with you and you don't want to screw it up, and you want to make sure that you stop and don't go left. So even though here I didn't get deep, I stopped, almost stopped too soon and went right. But if you're like, man, I got to approach this green, I can miss on the right, right's good, left bad. You can start looking at how can I control myself so that I don't swing around. So let's say we have a little bit of an over the top on this one. Didn't really affect, I went a hair left, but for an over the top, that wasn't bad. If we would have continued that little bit of a over the top and really done it, you can see I'm going to start pulling left. So anyway, now you know what the finish is all about. So let's go back and take a bigger swing. Here we go. Get set up. Start making sure I feel comfortable with this turn. And let's take a bigger swing. Well, that was easy. A little thin maybe for some. So I said if we're thin, we would need what? A little bit more angle of attack, meaning come a little higher and get through that ball. Just don't pound your back. Every shot you take, when I'm doing this right, man, my back feels rewarded. And again, you're striking the match. Your club is striking the match. Bam. Don't start pounding. You're not going to like that. You're going to get golfer's elbow. But if you learn how to start moving and getting those hands forward, you might be slightly heavy, but that's what the bounce is for. And it should be doing its job. And you're not going to be super heavy. The only time you're going to be heavy is if you don't turn and you just throw your hands down and you got nowhere to go. That's when you're fat. But if you're coming through here and letting the club release and you're not hardly holding that club and you're letting the momentum do your release, you're going to be fine. So just take to here, get those hands through. I don't care exactly where they go right now. You know, I'm using a 9-iron, so you know the very top line, the green line on top, is the typical flight of a 9-iron. So you know if I'm going underneath the 5-iron, I'm de-lofting this club. But we can't go around the golf course, even though you can hit pretty hard. Well, every now and then you're going to get a toe shot. That's that. Go look at the video. Slow it down. Toe shots, again, you're not getting down back here and coming around. You're coming here too steep, and chances are you're just hitting half the ball. So always remember, this turn is for a reason. I don't want you to hit a bunch of toe shots. My point here was, and my ball's forward right now, so I'm going to have to kind of reach for this guy. We can almost hit full shots. And if they're thin, maybe one thing I have to do on my turn is make sure I hold the lag and get it down into the ground. And if I'm fat, that's a simple fix. If I'm fat and I'm throwing my hands down in the ground, I need more turn that way. You heard that was probably fatter, and you're like, well, he just said he needs more turn. Well, I'm normally not pressed on my weight all on one side coming down into the ball. That's why I'm having you move your ball forward for just right now, because I guarantee you, you're hitting out here. So now, we're going to take one shot and put the ball back in the center and use both our feet equal weight. Get on the balls of our feet, feel comfortable, start pre-turning the hips, and now we're going to see how we hit. So I'm going to stop there, but we're going to go much further on part 2. So let's hold off.